Women have been quiet for far too long. We've taken these forms of violence and experiences of marginalization and suffered various vulnerabilities for far too long. The culture of silence has kept us so limited in our lives experiences in various ways that we have to start telling these stories now.
You are viewing The Intersection. I am your host, Sherna Alexander Benjamin. The Intersection centers on conversations on women, peace, and security, using a transformative justice framework to co-create just societies for all, where everyone is valued. Thank you for joining us today. Like our channel, subscribe, and share. Today, we are joined by Carolyn Seaman. Carolyn is a friend, encourager, and we belong to a tribe of women we call the World Pulse Amazon Sisters. Carolyn is a lawyer with almost 2 decades experience advancing women and girls' rights, a filmmaker, a tech evangelist, a girl expert, a social entrepreneur, and the founder of Girls' Voices Initiative, a nonprofit that educates and empowers girls and women to identify their voices and use it to advocate for their rights. And she uses technology and digital media to amplify their voices to wide audiences, particularly policymakers and other influencers. Her nonprofit provides digital literacy and empowerment skills to girls and women and facilitates their creation of technology applications and resources to strengthen their advocacy. Carolyn is a Tech Woman Fellow, Woman Leader of the World Fellow, a World Pulse Ambassador, and an advanced digital change maker, innovating creative programs that empower girls and women in Nigeria. She has been named in Nigeria's 20 most innovative women in tech, 50 most outstanding female pace setters in Africa, and Nigeria's 100 women in tech, and was recently named on the 2021 Feminist 100 and top 21 women leaders to watch in 2021. Her films and documentaries have screened at various film festivals, including the Toronto International Women's Film Festival and the Los Angeles International Women's Film Festival. Her work has impacted over 800,000 adolescent girls, and she is building a girls' rights movement. Carolyn, welcome to The Intersection. It is an honor to have you joining us today, and I look forward to an engaging conversation.
Thank you so much, Sherna. Thank you for having me on The Intersection. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you. I hear congratulations are in order as your films are receiving awards, and a way to go. And with that, I just dive right into my next question, because here at The Intersection, we go straight to it.
Yep.
You wear many leadership caps. You are a lawyer, a mobile app developer, writer, film director. How did you get involved in filmmaking?
Very interesting question. It has been a journey indeed. I got into filmmaking, I would say, right from my late teens. For me, it started out as a hobby, as a passion. I'm just fascinated by many aspects of the creative industry. So I love music, I love films, I love art. So I tend to really surround myself with a lot of projects within that space. So a lot of the work I was doing from the onset were just really as a hobby, just for the fun of it, being community projects, sometimes being part of music videos, so it was just really fun, creative things like that. And that's how it started out for me. But over time, when I started to work in the full development sector, I really took a lot of interest in finding the connect. So for me, I felt like we needed to start connecting a lot of the work we were doing, the fantastic research, the fantastic field work, and a lot of the really great work that comes out of the development sector. I felt like we needed to start using film to tell some of these stories, to start thinking about even using that perspective to start to, kind of trigger informal conversations around these really sensitive subject matters that tend to be the focus of our work, within the development sector. And if you look at the way we work as civil society, many times we do all of this fantastic research. We have really great reports that are sometimes so bulky and full of graphs and, a lot of complex data. Not many people consume that information, except people who are interested in that research or people who need to use it, to work on their own projects. So many times we can forget the need for that body of work to weave back into the communities that we actually set out to reach. And so for me, that became a space I felt, let's use film to tell those stories. Let's use film to knit our work back into the communities that need that information the most. So we can do our beautiful research and communicate the outcome of that in 2-3 minute videos that go a long way to trigger really rich informal conversations in communities that can now use that process to actually address those kind of issues. Especially when we talk about social norms issues in specific, they are very sensitive and very, because they border a lot on issues of culture, religion, and many times film help to just break down the sensitivity of such conversations. So that has really been pretty much the journey for me into being so passionate about advocacy and social impact filmmaking. You're on mute, Sherna, you're on mute. Unmute yourself.
Sorry.
Awesome.
I love how you incorporated the aspect of deducing from the reports to allow women to tell their stories with that impact. As a woman filmmaker in a male-dominated industry, how difficult has it been to navigate within that particular space and also get financial support for your film projects?
Yes, the filmmaking industry is definitely a man's game, like many other sectors of the economy anyway. It's quite difficult. I would say it's difficult even for men, especially when we come to finance. It's difficult even for men to raise financing for their films or their media projects in general. So you can imagine it's, I would say, twice or even 100 times as hard for women to even access such financing for their projects. So yes, it's really been a ride, but for us, we've just basically pushed through. So when I started out with this whole vision of starting off the Girl Nation project, honestly, we pitched this project to so many investors, pitched to donors, pitched to even some private organizations. But it was sad that many didn't really see the value in it. Many didn't think that was the direction a civil society organization should be going. Many people didn't think that that was where investment was important in terms of building women's capacities in filmmaking and their capacity to actually produce films around women and girls' issues. So it was really challenging. But we're grateful for those who actually listened, for those who saw the vision and the passion in this. For us, we literally came up with this whole idea of targeting young female undergraduates with technical filmmaking skills. So basically building their capacity from script writing through to editing and working with them to actually tell compelling stories about women and girls' issues and produce those films in short films and documentaries that could be screened to communities to facilitate conversations around key social norms issues that need to be addressed in our society. And we were so grateful. We pitched this to the French embassy in Nigeria. So the French embassy supported that for us. And that was how we got the Girl Nation project started. Since 2019, we've been able to work with over 500 young female undergraduates in 3 public universities now from its 2nd edition. And we have over 6 productions, short films and documentaries that have been produced by these girls and have gone on to screen internationally, just like you shared some of the international awards that have been won so far. So we've been able to even get these productions to screen we've had over 30 international screenings now since 2019. It's really amazing, but it's really inspiring. For me, that's the journey to breaking the whole conversation of it's a man's game. Now we're making it a woman's game. Yes. We're making women really enter the space and make it different. We're making them use their power to make their voice count. It's really mind-blowing because these films have screened in countries that many of these girls haven't even imagined. They don't even know those countries exist.
Wow.
So it's your skill going beyond where you can physically access as a human being and where your voice can actually reach. It's you using film to make your voice get to spaces you can't reach physically. So it's really beautiful to have these films being screened internationally, to have them even win awards, win best film, best documentary in film festivals like the Toronto International Film Festival, the Los Angeles International Film Festival. They won festivals in the UK, in Belarus, the list just goes on and on. It's really inspiring to see that there is power in the voice and the skills of women when they're invested in.
Powerful, powerful. And what struck me, Carolyn, is when you said that the films are being screened and receiving awards in countries that some of the girls who worked on the movie and even acted in the movie have never seen. And that is a powerful tool for change.
Yeah. And again, coming from a country that is limited in terms of giving opportunities to women in this space. You spoke about it being a man's game. We're coming from a country where so much investment has been put into the industry. I'm hoping you've heard about our famous Nollywood industry.
Yes.
As of 2018, our Nollywood film industry was said to be worth over $50 billion.
Yes.
$50 billion. So we're literally next to Bollywood and Nollywood, and Hollywood, So It's a really massive industry. But again, like we said, it's been ruled by the men. Even the investment that our federal government has invested in the creative industry has always targeted men. So, for example, with research that we did before we started off the Girl Nation project, between 2013 and 2014, for example, we had our federal government release over $200 million.
Wow.
Over 2,000 filmmakers and only 8 women. That 2,000, only 8 women. This was in 2013, 2014. Again, in that same period, between 2014 and 2017, we had 105 filmmakers that our federal government invested over 3 billion naira.
Wow.
3 billion naira to support them, filmmakers, directors, producers, to support them to do their film productions. And only 3 out of 105 filmmakers that were invested in, only 3 were women. Only 3 were women. Again, we had a project that the government initiated in 2014. They called it the Project ACT, ACT, and it was basically building the capacity of young Nigerians to travel to different institutions in the United States of America to build their capacity in filmmaking, in different aspects of filmmaking. And they had 50 young Nigerians that were to have benefited from that process, and only 1 was a woman in that 50.
Wow.
So speak about a man's game. That is the industry that we have had. The few women who have managed to get to the top in that industry are women who already by their own family wealth or other income have been able to build their capacity in this space. Very rarely have we had our government invest in women and girls' capacities in this creative industry. And so that was why we were really passionate about working in this space and building the capacity of more girls and women to be able to also compete, on a level playing ground with their male counterparts in this space.
And this
is really been
sorry, Carolyn, but this is critical to show that the work that you are doing is needed, so that women can take their stake and their positions within those industries, not just being actors, but also being the ones who take charge of the projects to lead. And with this is just carries greatly into the two movies that we're here to discuss today that you and your team launched to mark International Women's Day coming out of the Girl Nations project. And we'll just take a view. Those movies are in this together and you don't see her coming, so the movie industry in Nigeria, they don't see the group of women you have coming. So we could, yes. And, we hope that having conversations like these will really reach places and open people's minds to see how the investment in women's advancement is still needed.
I wanted to be a pilot until this predator and they disfigured that dream. He raped me repeatedly in my father's house. But when I had the courage to report him to my family, my parents said, "It's your fault."
Five women. Five different stories.
His brothers believed I killed him. This man needs to pay for what he has done. My name is Efe, and I'm here to look for my mother.
Stories which are infinitesimal to the ordeals of over 4 billion women around the world.
Your mother was attacked and raped 27 years ago.
Women forged by sisterhood, who turn pain into power.
He has denied me my promotion for 5 years in a row because I refused to sleep with him. Sir,
Together, no woman is left behind.
Millions of women in Nigeria suffer the same fate because they do not know.
I am a child of rape.
Wow, that was powerful. That was really powerful. And, I encourage everyone who is viewing, who is listening, you must head over to Girl Voices to look at the movie. I mean, it is powerful. I noticed in the movie, in the trailer, I looked at the movie also, that real issues affecting millions of women across the globe were highlighted. Why was it important to highlight women's experiences with sexual assault, sexism, workplace harassment, pressures to get married, and unhealthy stereotypes, gender stereotypes?
Thank you so much. Honestly, I still have chills. I've watched that trailer and the whole film a million times. I was part of the production, but I still have chills every time I watch it. It's really a blessing to be able to start telling this kind of stories. Honestly, it was really important for us to tell these stories because we felt like we were coming from a perspective of there's no point being sugarcoating the challenges women face every day in different sectors of society. Women have been quiet for far too long. We've taken this forms of violence and experiences of marginalization and suffered various vulnerabilities for far too long. The culture of silence has kept us so limited in our lives experiences in various ways that we have to start telling these stories now. It was really important. It was challenging at first for us because when you talk about telling women's stories, there are tons and tons and tons of experiences, real lived experiences that women have faced through and continue to experience on a daily basis. And sometimes it feels like telling the stories one at a time will take forever. So when we were really at the table of thinking about what story do we tell this period, especially with the pandemic and all that has ensued since last year, we felt a need to be creative in capturing as many real lived experiences of women as possible. And we didn't want it to be overly long, so we really had to think out of the box. How do we tell these stories in a way that it's creative, it's very relatable, it's contemporary? Because just like I told you, this is a project we've started since 2019. When we started with the pilot in 2019, we focused on real community stories, rural experiences of rural girls and women. And so we felt a need to also shift a bit and tell the urban contemporary stories, because sometimes when you want to talk about the whole conversation of violence against women and girls, there's some people that want to keep it as an abstract concept or something that only affects, rural women or poor women or women who are already disadvantaged. But many times we're trying to, through a story like this, we're trying to also help people understand that this is a story that affects girls and women, simple, whether they are from whichever class of society, whether they are what age, they are vulnerable to these various forms of violences. And these are the ways it limits their capacity to fulfill their dreams, their capacity to go on to explore their potentials, their capacity to even just basically live and thrive like every human being wants to. So that was why we felt a need to tell some of these stories. Even though it was a short film, we wanted to capture as much of those realities, something that can help people quickly ask questions. Who am I in this story? Am I the one who will victimize, or am I the victimized? So that everybody understands that there's a lesson for them to learn. There's a different action that they should take. Basically, that was why we felt a need to explore some of these varieties in the kind of stories we were telling.
And Carolyn, what were some of the things that motivated you to ensure this film was launched? Because I know you may have met with some challenges during the process, but what kept you motivated?
I'm so overly passionate about anything that has to do with girls and women, honestly, because I'm just one who feels like women have suffered these vulnerabilities for far too long. And the earlier we start to even actively engage women and girls in addressing these issues, the better, for our societies. So I was really passionate about, first and foremost, building these capacities for these young women, and then also getting these stories out. Because if you look at our mainstream media today across Africa, and I'll speak especially for my own country, Nigeria, the kind of content we have is prescriptive. It's sensationalized. Even when you look at our Nollywood film industry, the kind of stories that are being told, it's, a lot of the witch doctors, things that I'm not saying are completely eroded from our society today, but they're not necessarily the reality of millions and millions of girls and women today. And the earlier we start to tell the stories that really matter, the better we can actually see impact in our society. So it was really important for us to really focus on those uncommon aspects of women and girls' experiences that are not told, because they are not sensationalized, they are not the stories that make for good money at the box office. We really needed to tell those uncommon stories. Even when you see the contemporary stories that are emerging in the space today, there are also a lot of romance, love stories that are almost too fictionalized for people to even really take hard lessons. We're not taking on those social norms issues that are actually at the core of a lot of the challenges we face in our societies. And so for us, it was important to push through and make sure that those are the stories that are emerging in our media space today. And if possible, give the power to women. Because a lot of times we've also felt like we're always on the receiving side. We wanted to be able to show the strength of women, the capacity for women to support themselves. So that was why we felt a need to tell this kind of uncommon stories. It was really, just like you said, it was a hard time to shoot. COVID hit, we had to delay the project for a while, but it was really worthwhile at the end of the day. We were happy we were able to, for this project, for this particular film, we just watched the trailer in this together. We were actually able to get some famous actors in our Nollywood industry to even act. So it really made a world of difference that we could also win those people that are just famous for being seen in the, famous sensationalized stories, but to see them also telling these strong advocacy-driven stories was really worth the wait and the push. So that we're really glad about.
And looking at the film in this together, what I appreciated was the circle of healing in the film. It was as if you were restoring women's faith in each other through their experiences and showing we are more similar than different. What messages did you want to send concerning those healing circles?
I mean, honestly, even from your question, you've answered most of it. It was important for us, first and foremost, to actually create a more relatable perspective to this whole conversation of building support systems. In developed countries, they have the properly structured support systems. You have shelters that are very advanced, that provide various advanced programming. You have AA meetings, that people with different addictions attend, and they have support systems in terms of mentors that keep them committed to the process that they've taken interest to build in themselves. We don't have those kind of systems or structures or support processes within our kind of society. And many times you find that we just struggle with depression, struggle with the mental health challenges that, sometimes evolve from some of these horrible experiences of violence and different forms of marginalization and vulnerabilities that women undergo every day. And we felt a need to start thinking out of the box and getting society, women in society, women and girls, to start to think outside the box. Yes, we may not have AA meetings like them or see them in the movies, but we can create them. We have those support systems that are relatable to us. Some of them are in our religious circles, in our churches, in our mosques. Some of them are within the community. Some of them are in our cities, in our work structures. So that was why we actually used a gym, because we wanted people to know it's not that you have to have a structured center that has an AA meeting that you have to attend. You can choose to build your support system within the gym, within the salon, spaces that women always go to. Let's create a shift in the way we approach those spaces. Let them not be spaces where we go and gossip about the latest trends. Let them be spaces where we go and actually just unburden ourselves, build safe spaces, build systems where we check on one another, where we're supportive to one another, where we're there when people feel like they are really losing it. Because many of us as women and girls always come to those experiences one way or the other, where you need somebody to just hold your hand and let you know that it will be okay, and we felt like it was good to really pick a space that is very contemporary and relatable for people, and they can just get the message that you can go on to build those spaces in the different circles that you best find yourself being able to take advantage of such spaces. So that was one of the things we really wanted to bring out with this story in terms of the location of where a lot of the storytelling happened in the film. And then when you talk about that circle of healing, it was also deliberate. Many times, I've heard this popular saying a lot that really drives me crazy as a woman, where people say, oh, women, we are our own problem. You know, women don't support themselves, they tear one another down. And I'm like, hello, am I in a different world? Men are their own problem. Men can tear themselves down. We've seen that happen a lot of times. We've seen men scheme together and knock each other out of positions, but you don't see the world end, or you don't see them sulking up and down that, oh, men are our problems and we need somebody to help us. No, they just sort it out and keep moving. You find a man, he looks around, he looks for the system that supports him and fixes himself there. And that is what I feel as women we should be doing today. Instead of sulking around, instead of accepting that negative perception that we are our own problems. No, we should convert that to a belief that says that, look, we are the ones that best understand our problems, and we're the ones that would best help each other out of these challenges we face every day. And so it was deliberate that we made it come across as such in the film, that there's a circle of healing we can build among ourselves as a support system as women. And the earlier we start to build those support systems and start to take advantage of those circles of healing, the better we can come together and achieve that unity of purpose in terms of really pushing to get gender equality in our societies. Because we really would continue to experience this inequality if we continue to pull apart from one another as women. I mean, you said it really strongly when you asked the questions. Nobody understands your problem as a woman like a fellow woman, trust me. So, I mean, she's the best person who can be that first support system to you before we start to leverage other support systems around us. So that really was a strong message we wanted to bring out from the film.
Yeah, thank you. And that is necessary, that we come together as women and, develop those value-based support systems. And I'll be honest here, Carolyn, because I'm a fan of Nollywood. Right? I love me some good Nollywood.
I know.
At, like actors like Mercy and Patience and Ruth and Leonard. I love me because it gives me a sense of connection. It gives me a sense of connection to where my ancestors came from and where my parts of my DNA lie. Right.
Exactly.
And when I looked at your movie, In This Together, and you shared the trailer, in my mind, I went with some apprehension, because I know in many of the Nollywood movies, and you spoke to it earlier, women are portrayed, sometimes you see them in this deep poverty, in shacks and so forth. So when I saw the first few minutes of the movie, I was like, yes, and because you urbanize the issue and you also humanize the issue. When I saw women who were strong, upper middle class Black women, speaking to their experiences, but also holding their space as with power and great strive. And, I just want you to speak again. I know you mentioned it before, but speak again to why you shifted the narrative concerning how the media portrays Black women and women in some African countries.
Yeah, thank you so much for asking that. Honestly, that was another deliberate goal that we wanted to bring out from the films. I'm glad that came across to you from just watching it. I am one of the people who is also fed up with the way Africans in general, particularly women, African women, are portrayed in general mainstream media, not even only in films. It's no wonder. I have experienced this, when you're, probably in a store in the US and you're communicating with somebody and sharing that you're from Africa. There's this first reaction like you came from space, like people can't connect to somebody like you from Africa. And you can't blame that reaction, because they are talking about the things they have seen in the films. Many of them don't have the opportunity to ever step foot on any African country on the continent. So many times it's those films and those documentaries that they see that give them the perception in their mind about who an African person is or who an African woman is. And it's so sad, especially for us as women. Many times all you see, just like you said, are those negatives. It's either, rape and abuse, trafficking, sometimes it's almost looking as if the whole of poverty is wearing the face of a woman. Because, it just looks like we can't look better than that. And we know that we have really strong Black African women that have been doing amazing things, not just on the continent, but even globally. But their stories are not being told. Their stories are not being amplified. At best, they appear in the news because it's just news. But just seeing women on news does not necessarily register in your mind that women in Africa can be successful. We need to be able to also tell those stories in just really natural, human, real lived experiences that people can relate to. And then they start to have that human connection to a successful Black woman, or to a successful Black man or Black girl or Black boy. And so we felt a need to be able to communicate that as well, and still within that space of showing women's strength, show their vulnerability, so that people can understand that the fact that women face these forms of violence or these limitations does not mean that they are not successful or they cannot be successful at something else. So yes, it was very deliberate to be able to show that successful side of women. In that space, we also wanted to show, even for us here on the continent, within the country, we wanted women to be able to watch these films and see themselves and understand that, hey, it's okay that I suffered this. It's okay that I was abused, that I was forced to marry the man who had been abusing me as a kid. When you hear that there's another sister out there who went through this, and then you are inspired to really just not let that limit you or keep you down, but to help you also understand that, no, I can tell my story and empower another woman while also lifting other girls from being broken or let down by those experiences. So yes, it was very deliberate. We're happy to be able to show that women are successful. Thank you. On the continent, yes, women are successful.
Yes.
and we can even do more if only we get, a lot of things we're saying. If women are invested in, if women are given opportunities to lead, if women are given the spaces to even just make their voices count, women can actually actively contribute to development in our societies.
What was the most important risk you took while making this specific movie in this together, and why?
Honestly, it was a really big risk to even tell the story as a whole. One of the things that was at the back of our minds is, what if people don't even get it? Like, what's so fantastic about going to women being in a gym and just sharing their stories? It was really a risk for us to tell that story and believe that people will understand that there is power in women really creating their own safe spaces and building their own support systems, working through their healing process together as a sisterhood. It was really a risk. Just taking on that story, we tried to think of what other relatable circles or environments we could take advantage of to communicate that across. And we just took the risk with the gym and felt, so many people are actually being sensitive about their lifestyle now and making better choices. So you see a lot of people on the continent working out and keeping fit these days to stay healthy and eating better. So we thought, let's take the plunge and hope that people get the message. But we really, really wanted people to start to think outside the box when we're talking about approaches to gender-based violence. Again, not taking away from the fact that all of these interventions need to continue. So the whole advocacy and the push with policymakers in terms of getting better laws and getting implementation of those laws off the ground, all those interventions still need to keep going. But for us, we also thought, how do we start to interface with the grassroots? How do we break down this issues, especially those social norms issues, because at the end of the day, how much can a law do to help a girl who has been abused at 15 and whose dad now forces her to marry her abuser?
Yeah.
I mean, those are things that bother parents. So those are the kind of people we were hoping these stories will help to create that shift in their perspective in terms of how they address these issues, in terms of how they are thinking about the life and the survival and the capacity for a girl or woman to thrive despite the fact that challenges could have come her way in the course of her life's journey. So that was really a big risk for us to look at storytelling in that perspective. And for us, the other thing was even the risk of telling stories differently. You know, just like you said, I mean, from the approach, from the way the actors speak, everything was so deliberate for us. The dialogue, the kind of projection the story went, everything was calculated to be different from what you've always seen in our Nollywood films. So for us, that was also a risk. What if people felt, oh, it was too urban driven, you know, for it to be relatable for them? We just took the risk and believed that people would see the humanity in these experiences and probably have a relation or somebody that they know, a friend, you know, that they can find that person's story in one of these ladies' stories, and they can connect to the reality of these issues and now focus on the lessons that need to be learned within the stories.
One thing that came to mind when I was looking at it is, how did you persuade women to act in the various roles? Looking at the stigmas attached to the social problems of rape, sexual harassment, how did you really make, inspire them to say, okay, I'll take this role? And, looking at one of the actors when she, the passion in her face and her voice, her tone, when she said millions of women are also suffering the same fate because they do not know.
Honestly, you won't believe it, but it was simple for us. We just focused on making sure that each time we had to meet potential actors or anybody that had to do anything with this production at all, we made sure we invested in communicating clearly what the vision of the whole project was. It was important that people understood from day one what they're getting into. So somebody is not thinking it's all about how much I'll be paid from this project or how much it will make at box office, because there's nothing like that for the project. For us, you needed to understand from day one that this was a social impact project. The goal is actually to really go to communities and just inspire informal conversations around these sensitive issues. So we focused a lot on communicating that clearly to actors. And many times it was easy. It was pretty much easy from the moment you communicate that across, because especially for the women, they could immediately relate to the stories. For many of them, even from the moment they were glancing through the script, it was like, oh my gosh. I remember the guy that acted as the gym manager. The moment he got a hold of the script, in 5 minutes, he just busted into this smile and was like, wow, this is a different angle.
Yes.
And just seeing that expression just told you that you have the right person in this project, So it was really great that people could see themselves or somebody, like I said, somebody that they know in these stories. And then that just inspires that passion within them to want to be a part of it in terms of really getting that story out to the people who need to see it and interface with it the most. So it was really just about bringing people on board with the passion and the goal of the project as a whole, and it was really easy from then on to get the best out of the actors. For the scene you are talking about, the particular actress you are talking about, you won't believe it. The first time we were, it was all the times we rehearsed and everything, it was... You didn't even get a sense of it, but the moment we were acting it, in fact, the first take we did, she actually broke down crying. And all of us, everybody just broke down because it was like we were all having a moment right there in the middle of the film. And for me, that just passed the message because I just immediately turned to everybody and said, yes, we are actually in the story. And that's the purpose of this. You know, and I said, look, everybody take a moment. Let's let it get into us very well.
Yes.
Because we are just confirming that we're actually telling a story that needs to get out there. You know, and I found from that moment, as many takes as we did, she had the same exact reaction, which tells you that for her, it had translated beyond just her seeing it as I'm acting this role, to her embodying the character as a whole and really picturing what that experience must have been like for the person who actually went through the story. Speaking of which, the stories are all real lived stories. All those stories within they are stories of real women that were acted out by these actors. And so it was really, really powerful to be able to have a taste of their real experiences, even in the acting process.
That's powerful. That's really powerful. And that carries us straight into the second movie. And to our audience, if you're just joining us, you're viewing The Intersection with Sherna Alexander Benjamin, the place where we center conversations on women, peace, and security. And today I have the pleasure of speaking with Carolyn Seaman. Carolyn is a lawyer with almost 2 decades experience advancing women and girls' rights, a filmmaker, a tech evangelist, a girl expert, and a social entrepreneur, and the founder of Girls' Voices Initiative, a nonprofit that educates and empowers girls and women to identify their voices and use it to advocate for their rights. So, Carolyn, we now head into the second trailer, and the slant is so much different, but it shows also how women are still looked at. So let me hush my mouth and let me get to the trailer. If I can get this done. Let me see if I can get it done right this time. Okay. Right, I think I have it. Nice.
Awesome. Okay.
Stop her. Sorry, madam. You'll have to sit at the back seat, eh? This seat is for the CEO of Tanko and Yakase Oil Conglomerate.
Yes, she is the CEO.
Mama, why does Baba hate me so much? Me no mishi.
My document? Isn't this your document?
He sent you to the best school money can buy. Gave you everything, including your life. And you say he hates you? Aliyu, is this how you are going to run your father's company when he retires next month?
Emata, this is not for your eyes, my dear. Oil business is not for women. Shut up, Aliyu.
Your daughter presented your document like she was a Harvard professor.
It's always, I'll do this, I'll do that. And he never sees that boy's voice online.
I am not ready to get married. And I don't love Abba.
Ajia, let's get ready for poverty. Aliyu has finally sunk this family.
Why is he making me marry Abba? Why are you making me marry Abba? Why?
Wow, powerful, 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 powerful. You know, what struck me is when he said the oil business is not for women. And, you know,
very relatable, right?
Yeah. I saw this film is receiving some great awards, international awards. And congratulations, you know,
Thank you.
Carolyn, congratulations to you and your team. Now, in that statement, when he said the oil business is not for women, what does his statement say about how thousands of men in Nigeria view women and girls?
Honestly, it says a lot about how, just like you said, thousands of men view, and even women sometimes, view women as not the kind of people that should take certain spaces or take certain positions or explore certain kinds of jobs at all. And we've seen that for donkey years now, where there's this whole perception of, I mean, you have, in fact, sometimes it looks like you have this group of people in society that first feel a woman shouldn't even engage any form of work. Your work is at home, you know, in the kitchen, taking care of the family. And then even among those who seem to be liberal and open to that whole conversation of women being able to work, you still find a group that feel like there are some jobs that shouldn't be for women, you know, like why on earth would you want to be a civil engineer? Why would you want to be a pilot? Why would you want to be, you know, an aeronautical engineer? Like, what are you looking for there?
Yes.
You know, and we've seen this for so many years. Even in 2021, girls still have to deal with getting their parents' blessings to be able to pursue certain disciplines or fields of work or even careers that they're so passionate about, and yet people feel like those are not spaces girls should engage. And we felt a need to amplify this challenge that women and girls face every day in a story that is very relatable. Within the geographical context of Nigeria, where this story was particularly told, you know, where we filmed, is actually in the northern part of Nigeria, where it's even, I would say, twice as hard for a woman to convince anybody to allow her to even do any form of work, let alone a daring job as being a leader in the oil industry at all. You know, it's something that is like a no-brainer. You know, it's like, no, just be, you could see the father was trying to convince her, look, we've worked everything out for you. You're going to marry a rich man and have everything you want and be exactly like your mother. Just stay at home and be a good housewife.
Yeah.
You know, and here she is being so passionate about everything that has to do with oil industry and even being so interested in how the stocks, you know, go up and down within the industry. It spoke about the kind of long-term dreams she was having within that industry. And this is an industry that is not even open to accepting her as a player, let alone as a leader, you know? So it's kind of like a double-barrel fight. You have to first fight to even be a player and then to even be a leader within that space. So it was really quite interesting to tell this story. This story was almost a reflection of some of the real experiences of the girls who were actually filming this story. Because for many of them, they didn't even get the permission of their parents to enroll in this whole program of learning these skills in filmmaking. Many of them felt, why are you going into that space? It's prostitutes that are there, you know. Why do you want to go there? You want to go and be prostituting up and down, you know, and they just couldn't conceive that this could be a tool that you could want to use to tell stories of change or to make a change in society. So it was really passionate for some of the girls who were filming this to be able to tell this kind of story. Because this is a girl who, in this story, this particular story, she's contesting an opportunity to work in her father's business, which is an oil company, which the father believed should be the place of the son, because that's the rightful person that should inherit the family business. But we saw a son who was very irresponsible, who had no passion for the business whatsoever, who was entitled because he knew the position was his anyway, you know, and was really not making any effort to actually be effective in the business. And the girl who was passionate, who would give everything for it, was the one who didn't have the space or the voice at all. You know, so that line in particular was very, very powerful, you know, because that's one of the first challenges you face, where it's told to you straight up, this is not a place for you as a girl. You know, and many times those kind of ladies are told to go and be comforted being a teacher, or at best be a nurse, and you should be fulfilled feeling that you are working. You know, so we really as a society, as a people, need to move beyond having genders behind certain fields of study or discipline or certain careers. Women and men should be allowed to just express their passions in the way they best feel it. They should be allowed to pursue their dreams, irrespective of whatever career it is that they have chosen to do. And they shouldn't be limited based on the gender that they are or the sex that they are, simply because they are women or men. That should not even be a conversation at all. That was really important.
Oh, sorry to cut you there. Yeah, you spoke about in your response how women also play a role in keeping those stereotypes, gender stereotypes about women continuing in society. And what advice would you give to groups of women aspiring for leadership positions and those who enable those gender stereotypes that hinder women's advancement?
I mean, this is a very, very deep and sensitive conversation. Because I feel like sometimes you make a statement and people almost feel like you're not being feminist when you say some things. But the truth of the matter is we really need to start unpacking things before just having these quick fix ideas around how to address them. For me, the whole conversation of women in leadership is something that we can't just talk about or think we have fanciful ideas about how they can be fixed. It requires a lot of strategizing. It requires a lot of investment. It requires a lot of skills building and structuring processes for women to actually be able to receive the support they need to be the best that they can be. And many times we just feel like, oh, training women or telling them that they can be leaders in itself is enough for them to just be great leaders. No, they need a lot of investment. A lot of those things that men naturally have because life is a lot simpler for them moving through. We have to fight to go to school, fight to do what you want to study, what you want to study, fight to... It's just so many fights many times that the whole conversation of leadership just brings up, too many issues for you to address in one conversation or one intervention. It requires a lot of strategic input and support systems for women to actually be successful in leadership. And that was why we were really sensitive about this issue. In Nigeria now, we have just 4% of women in leadership. It's almost embarrassing to even say out in public, because when you have a country like Rwanda that's already boasting of over 60% of women in their parliament, that's a record that every country should aspire to achieve, because they've not only had that in terms of quantity, that, we have many women in society, they are actually able to translate that into the quality of leadership that you're seeing happening in Rwanda, in terms of them really being forward thinking on a lot of things. And so for me, I feel like we need to start breaking down some of these issues for us to understand, not just as fighting for women to be in leadership, but even within ourselves as women, building ourselves up to actually take these positions of leadership. We have a lot to do in that space. And when you speak about women who sometimes end up being the ones who are perpetuating some of these limitations, or who actually are like the moms, like the mom in this film is telling her daughter, I don't know where your dad's office is. Like, that is a justification of being a good wife. It just tells the kind of journey we have to take when we're talking about women understanding that this is a space that they should be able to access if they want to. For women who are seen to be part of the problem, these days, so, like we like to put it in many terms, I always say you can't really blame those women for being part of the problem. And let me break it down to a very simple cultural practice, that we see a lot in Africa. So a lot of African communities that still deal with a lot of widowhood rights. Mm-hmm. You would see, like in Nigeria, it's a fellow woman who will pick another woman and scrape her whole hair off simply because her husband died, and it's part of the, rituals that she needs to go through, to prove that she's not the one who killed her husband. Trust me, that woman is not doing that, shaving off the hair of a fellow sister because she just enjoys doing it, or it's so much fun to do. At the back of her heart is a genuine belief that she's fulfilling culture, she's preserving culture, she's transferring culture from generation to generation. And so for me, it's not enough for us to just shoot down that kind of woman and say, oh, you're part of the problem. She doesn't even see it like that. For me, it's that we need to start to tailor interventions to help such women understand how they are just part of perpetuating a negative culture that is actually not beneficial to their fellow sisters. I mean, we talk so much about culture and almost worship it, especially in a lot of African communities, as if to say culture is divine and cannot be changed, It's not divine. It's a way of life that people built, for crying out loud. So it just takes the people who built it to understand that practice is negative to them as a people, and then to now think of what else can we pick up? How do we change this into a practice that is more beneficial for us as a people? And so for me, it's how do we start to reach out, tailor programs or activities or interventions that reach out to this circle of women who have been a product of this socialization that has wired them to be behaving the way that they do. Trust me, they are not bad women, they are not negative women, they're just an unfortunate product of the same cycle of violence and poor socialization, that we have in a lot of our African communities. And the earlier we start to target those women and support them enough to build their capacity to convert from being those kind of women to the women who actually uphold better cultural practices that empower their fellow sisters, the more we'll come closer to actually having better societies that help and empower women and girls in our societies. And while we're doing that, we start to target the younger generation earlier, the younger generation of girls that we can still impact early enough to help them, save them from actually entering this same socialization that has wired the negative types of women we have, that we now have to deal with in terms of saving our society from these negative practices. It's a lot of work that needs to be done, but I just believe that shooting them down doesn't save the day, really. It really just needs a targeted intervention that also lifts them up and empowers them positively.
I appreciate that you brought that into this space and into this discussion, because we sometimes you listen to some women advocates and it's as though they're fighting a war with a woman. And it's always critical to understand the context of the other party and to listen and see how we can work together to develop ways and programs to say, okay, you believe in this, but this is how it's hurting the other person. And as you rightly said, that woman may not even be aware, because she's doing it from her heart with all, this is how it's supposed to be done. Carolyn, as we come to a close, we just have a few more questions here, but in this aspect of women's leadership to the women, peace and security agenda, how critical is that? Because and when I speak about leadership here, I'm not speaking about just the leadership by appointment or formal leadership. I'm speaking about women being able to lead in every sphere that they are placed, even within the home, and to lead within the home in an equitable, just manner. How critical is that? Because the women, peace and security agenda is connected to every aspect of life. So, you know.
Yeah, honestly, it's very, very critical. I'll just start by saying a really powerful statement that my husband often says that really just blew my mind when I first heard it. You know, he says, patriarchy is not men. It's a system.
Yeah.
Over time, within our feminist journey and our feminist activism, we tend to almost mix that and feel like we're fighting, you know, men. We need to convert the men to understand. And we are not realizing that there are systems we need to target with different kinds of messages, different kinds of interventions, different kinds of approaches. If we want to see the kind of change we want to see from those different systems. It's important for us that socialization of our girls and boys needs to change, especially on the African continent. Honestly, it's at the heart of a lot of the challenges we're facing. This whole conversation of a woman has put to bed and we're still celebrating that a boy, and then, okay, at least you had a good delivery when it's a girl. You know, that for me is already where it starts. When you're already making that clear distinction between the value of a particular sex to another sex. Because immediately following that is the fact that already that boy starts to be socialized into an understanding and a context that he's better or more special than his female counterpart. Yeah. And already even the female counterpart is already coming into this socialization that I just manage the space that I get. I shouldn't ask for more. You know, I'm just grateful to be alive and to start being mindful of the fact that you have to fight for everything. We need to move beyond that socialization that already perpetuates this cycle of marginalization that leads to a lot of the vulnerabilities that women and girls suffer in our societies. We need to do a drastic change in the way we raise our children, in the way we educate them about their rights, which is why we're so passionate about the fact that girls need to know their rights early enough. They need to start understanding leadership, just like you said, from the very simple and practical form that it is. Because you won't believe it, the first people who are already thrown into testing out leadership from an early age are often girls.
Yeah.
Many times you find that this natural thing, by the time you can move and lock the door yourself, there's a likelihood mommy already tells you, watch your younger ones, wash the plates, do this, do that, and you have this roster of activities you need to get done before mommy gets back from work. And what you are not realizing as a girl is that you're already being nurtured in leadership. Yes. Because by the time you can fulfill those tasks, you can account for the things you were asked to do, that's you being a great leader. Unfortunately for us, we were socialized to think that it's just a household practice. You're not able to translate that capacity outside the space of the home. So you can't get to school and feel like, oh, I can be a class monitor, or I can be the class representative, or I can facilitate this group presentation. You start to feel like you need some perfect leadership skills to be able to do that, not knowing you've already been testing that out at home. You know, so we need to start helping girls understand very, very early that these are skills you already build naturally, and you just need to consciously translate them as you move within different sectors of society, so that you build those skills, you can actually internalize them depending on the spaces you find yourself. And then we can move away from this whole perception where we have girls second guessing themselves when they can already do better than their male counterparts, but they just don't know it. because we use big grammar to make you feel like there are some life skills you should have to be a great leader at work. And so you are just grateful that you even have a desk and you don't ever dream of yourself being the team leader. You know, because that is why we're not able to translate this beyond the home space. And we feel like, oh, women need to do twice as hard, you know, to be great leaders, to be, you feel like there's some magical skills you need to build before you are a good senator. A man doesn't, he just feels like, look, what is there in it? Be a great leader. I just need to take the bull by the horn. And he just dives into the deep. And we are rationalizing everything in our head. And this is how we lose those opportunities and those spaces. And again, there's a lot of judgment as well. You know, there's a lot of judgment when a woman fails at anything. It's quickly associated to her gender, as opposed to the man. For the man, it was a mistake. You know, oh, yes, he made a mistake. But for the woman, it's because she was a woman. That was why she didn't perform. You know, so all of those socializations need to change if we're to actually build equal level playing fields for women and men to compete and really just fulfill their potentials here on earth. I feel like we need to come to that space as a people if we really want to see equality in our societies.
Wonderful. I love when you spoke about the preferencing of one sex over the other, because even in that preferencing, and woman and the girl child is marginalized, then you already creating an insecure environment and future for this girl child. I love that. And the other point,
I mean,
no, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I was going to give you an example of my very amazing country, Nigeria. In Nigeria, we have an estimated population of about 214 million people. And statistics is estimating that 66% are female. So we're having an estimated 142 women. We're even more than the males, for goodness sake. And yet we are fighting to have a space and to make our voices count in society. It's crazy. You know, and it speaks a lot about the power that some of this, you know, history of socialization, you know, of our children, of our systems, how they have turned around to create this great gap of inequality in our societies that we're still grappling with today. It's a lot of work that we have to get done. I really hope that a lot of these interventions over time are yielding the kind of impact we want to see in our societies.
And I love, as I move to my next question, and I love the thought, because I always so hold this thought that patriarchy is an ideology that is transferred into the systems that we operate, and anyone could adopt that ideology. So when we look at that through that lens, then we realize this is not a war between men and women. You know, while men were socialized with the aspect of being leaders and so forth, we have to look at innovative ways to disrupt those systems that perpetuate the ideology. You know, so Carolyn, we cannot end this conversation without talking about your organization. You have impacted the lives of over 800,000 girls. And I mean, you know, I see the work that you're doing. You know, I see how wide it is reaching so many girls who are in need of this type of work that you're doing. The way how you also spoke to that aspect of leadership within the home that sometimes we overlook. Tell us about your organization, its services, programs, and the vision for the future.
Thank you so much, Sherna. So our organization, Girls Voices Initiative, is a non-profit that focuses around educating adolescent girls and young women about their rights. We also focus a lot around building their capacity around using technology and digital media to amplify advocacy for their rights. So within our organization, we're firm believers of the fact that we need to give spaces for girls to speak for themselves, enough of us as adults speaking for children just because we feel we've been there, we've done it all. We need to be able to give the space for girls to actually speak. Because when we're addressing their issues does not mean that we know it all. We need to listen to them. We need to hear from them because they are the ones that are most affected by the issues that are affecting them. And so we need to give them spaces to speak. And that's why we invest a lot around storytelling, shared experiences, because there's a lot of learning that happens within those spaces. And then we also kind of facilitate opportunities for girls to engage with policymakers and other influencers in their lives, so that this listening can happen across different stakeholders, so they can hear firsthand from the girls what they want or how they are worst affected by the things that, even their ideas around the solutions to a lot of these issues that affect them, so that they are kind of co-creators with those who are working around solutions to issues affecting girls. So we do a lot of skills building as well for adolescent girls and young women. I'll just talk a bit about some of the projects that we have done that we feel are really impactful and most exciting for us at our organization. So you spoke of one already, reaching over 800,000 girls. So our rights program has reached over 800,000 adolescent girls, to be specific. And so these are deliberate education around children's rights. So we're helping girls understand that children's rights are your rights. So as a girl, the same rights a boy has, you have as a girl. And you should be able to access certain spaces to articulate your demands around your rights protection, and where those rights are being violated, you should be able to articulate your demands for justice as well. So we really invest, because we find that at the heart of a lot of the vulnerabilities that girls suffer is the fact that they don't even know that things that are done to them are violations of their rights, and that there are punishments for such violations. So we try to educate girls around those issues so that they can speak for themselves and they can be bold to demand justice where those rights are violated. And then around advocacy, we work a lot with the girls. We feel like we don't just build your capacity to know your rights, we should give you the platform to speak about them. So for 16 days of activism, since 2018, we've been taking the girls to the radio station, the federal radio station in Nigeria, and they speak within the 16 days of activism around different issues on gender-based violence. They call on different actors of society around key issues, as well as ideas around solving some of the violence issues that girls in particular suffer from. So whether be it in their homes, in schools, in places of worship, they speak openly about those issues. In 2018, the girls reached over 80 million people through radio. And just last year, even amidst the COVID, they were able to reach over 122 million. It's mind-blowing. We tracked their daily on radio, and it was really mind-blowing. It was impressive to hear men call on the radio station because it was a live show. So it was really impressive to hear men call and say thank you to girls for educating them about gender-based violence. And even for traditional leaders to call into radio station and thank adolescent girls for speaking boldly about this, and even challenging them as traditional leaders to start thinking of ways that they can solve some of these issues, even at the community level. It was really impressive to be able to hear and see firsthand some of those impacts being recorded by girls simply because they were educated and empowered to lead their own advocacy. And then finally, I'll just talk about the Girl Nation project, which is what we've been talking a lot about during this interview. Which is where we've been able to reach over 500 young female undergraduates. Like I said, we worked with girls from 3 public universities so far in Nigeria. And we hope to get to over 1,000. That's the goal for us. We really want to reach at least 1,000 girls with these skills so that we can really be more active in changing our film industry from being a man's game to being a woman and a man's game. So we're excited about that project. Just like we've talked about, we have over 6 productions. They are all films that are available on YouTube. They are films that continue to screen in communities, both in Nigeria and outside. They've screened in over 30 international film festivals. And we're so excited about the fact that these films continue to tell these stories to the people who need to hear them the most, so that our advocacy actually starts to inspire the change we want to see in society. So we're so grateful for the opportunity to be not just impacting girls and women, but to be co-creators with girls and women in driving the change we want to see in society.
Thank you very much, Carolyn. And if you had the opportunity to speak to, let's say, 5 million women right now, what would you say to them?
Honestly, I would say the time is now. The time is now for women to rise up. We've been silent for too long. The time is now for us to rise up and speak, articulate, express ourselves. It's time for us to rise up and take seats at the table. And I tell you, those seats may not be given to you. You need to fight for those seats. And when you fight and they are not responding to you, I always tell my girls here, create your own table.
Yes.
Do what you need to do to make your voice count. We need to keep the push going. Gender equality is for all of us, so we need to rise up and fight to make sure that women and girls' voices count in society.
Carolyn, if someone is interested in supporting your work, how can they contact you?
Pretty much, first and foremost, our website is easy to access. Just Google Girls Voices Initiative. You hop on us. Our website is www.girls-voices.org. And my name is also pretty simple. Sherna has said so much about me today. So I'm Carolyn Seaman. So basically, my email is carolynseaman@girls-voices.org. I'm on so many social media platforms. You can Google me and track me down. And hit up Sister Sherna as well. Hit up the social media handles of the intersection, and I'm sure you'll be able to get across to me. We're happy to share. We believe that we can co-create together with and for girls. So please hop on, shoot us an email, and we're happy to connect with you.
Beautiful. Carolyn, thank you for joining me today on The Intersection to discuss your short films and the social problems they address. I am sure we will have you on again in the near future as you continue to blaze the trail. Yes, while empowering women and girls. And the next time I brought my glass here with my water, but this conversation was so engaging that I didn't even take a sip. So we have to bring some tea and snacks and get some more women on this conversation. So to the audience who have been watching and have been popping in and out on the Facebook feed and seeing some real nice conversations going, people requesting the links to the films. And, I would like to thank you for being a gracious audience, for just staying on and listening and tuning in and making the show a success. You have been wonderful, and look out for news of our next episode during the course of the week. We will share links and contact information to connect with Carolyn in the description box for this show. So thank you for listening to The Intersection with your host, Sherna Alexander Benjamin. Carolyn, thank you once again for being gracious enough to be here with me.
Thank you, Sherna. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes.
One love. Bye.
Bye.